What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take MLB Wise stream. CK013 here, joined once again by the GOAT, the true OG Paulie D. You can find him on Twitter at Paulie with 8 Ds. Paulie, what's happening, bro?
What up, everybody? I don't know what you said. I was trying to untangle this entanglement.
It's all good. You do the dirty to the headphones before the headphones are dirty to you. We've got they've already done the dirty to you, but we'll hope for the recovery. But it's another one of the weird slates. Like, I'm glad to have baseball back, and I'm praying that they don't cancel the season. So I'm not gonna complain too much. But I will say that pitching has kind of been a nightmare, as we saw yesterday, and we'll continue to see, I think, for the next few slates. We got pitchers that aren't stretched out. We've got managers that are trying to manage their pitchers. I think at some point, pitching is going to get like real good and maybe even too good, because I think a lot of teams are going to go to like 4-man rotations, and just because there's simply not a lot of games. I know Bauer's talked about wanting to be on a 4-man rotation, so we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, it's a little wacky. What's your overall take on the way the season's progressed?
I agree with what you just said, but I would say this is the best we've had so far, outside of like the first slate with a ton of options. But like yesterday, I almost felt like I was just, it didn't matter because they all sucked. Like today, I feel like, there will be some right answers and some wrong answers, and figuring out which ones is the skill here. But I do feel like there are options where yesterday I felt like it was either like you were going to run into 60% chalk guys that were sort of overpriced and not too exciting, or guys like Michael Wacha that you really didn't believe in, even though they ended up doing well for me. That really pained you to really tout because he really sucks. But there was just nothing yesterday. Today, I think there's actually options, and people will be wrong and right. Just a matter of doing the dirt.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The options are a little better today. It's funny we say that, and shout out to you, Paulie. You were one of the only people in the industry that I heard mention Michael Wacha's name in a positive light. And it's funny because he didn't even end up in any of the winning lineups, because that's how much people did not believe he could do anything. Like, that's how much. Like, we got Royal stacks, all these things, and like it fit perfectly, right? You would have paid up for Glass now. You would have paid up for Wacha. You would have had no choice but to stack the Royals, and maybe even a team like Tampa to make that work. So it was kind of like perfect, but there were obviously people found ways around it. They pitched Josh James, who got a 5 on DraftKings and sucked on FanDuel. And it's funny, man, how a play like that really could have made the difference if you had the Royal. We talked about the Royals, that we talked about a lot of those pieces. Tampa was the one that I didn't really like have on my radar at all, and they just kind of went out and broke the slate. But the Wacha piece, man, that was a big plug there. If I had Wacha over James, I did okay on DraftKings. I would have done a whole lot better. So shout out to you, man. That was a bold one, but really came through. Holla at your boy when you see him in the streets.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm with that.
Feel it. We feel it all day.
Try to.
That's it. Shout out to those of you in the YouTube chat. Seeing a bunch of people popping in here. See Patio Joe doing his dirty in the chat. Good to see everybody showing up. Please hit that like button if you haven't already, guys. The likes really help us out, allow us to continue to do the free content on the YouTube and the Twitch. And we like to be on the YouTube and the Twitch. So please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Welcome. Make sure you hit the notifications bell so you're notified whenever we go live. We cover MLB, NBA. We got a golf stream tonight. We cover all sorts of shit on this YouTube channel. NBA, MLB Monday through Friday, and NBA is coming up in just a couple days. So make sure you're up there. Patio Joe giving himself the old proverbial pat on the back. Says he had the raise. There you go, Joey. There you go, Joey. The proverbial pat on the back. Holla at your boy. Good to see a lot of you guys. Good to see a lot of you guys popping in here. With that said, man, let's go ahead and jump into it, because the FanDuel slate starts at 6:40, so we want to make sure we cover everything. DraftKings not until 7:05. You got a little bit more time there. Let's get started with some pitching action, man. Pitching is, once again, we talked about it being a shit show, but we also talked about it not being as bad as some of the other slates. So talk to me about some of the pitchers you got your eye on in Cash and JPPez.
All right. Where's my list at? Here we go. All right. So, well, in terms of cash games, it sounds as though Patrick Sandoval and Josh Lindblom are going to be very popular in terms of SP2s. I don't think you're gonna pair them up because there's not many teams that are that expensive where you need that much savings. So, right now I'm seeing Walker Buehler, even though he's on a 75 pitch limit, is pretty popular, and then Merrill Kelly. Yikes! But it seems like one of those spend ups paired with a Sandoval or a Lindblom is going to be like the cash game build. I'm fine with that. I think when you talk about cash and security with Walker Buehler only going a max of 5 or 75 pitches, whichever comes first, like for FanDuel, I wouldn't go there. You're not going to get the quality start. And like, you mentioned pre-show Tampa Bay's pitcher yesterday. He only went 5 innings or whatever he did. He still put up a respectable score. But like that slate did turn up to, after all the weather cancellations, it ended up being like a 5-game slate. There just wasn't many other options. Today there are. So I wouldn't go with Bueller. I just think you're spending too much of your salary for, best case scenario is what, 5 innings, maybe 10 Ks and like a 20, 22, 23-point score. And I just don't think that'll be enough. I think there'll be cheaper pitchers who find scores into the high 20s. So on the higher end, the guys that I have like the most interest in would be Carlos Martinez at 8.8. I, don't think he gets a ton of strikeouts, although Minnesota is kind of boom bust. If they're not hitting home runs, they do have some strikeout ability. And he's a vet. He should be stretched out. Like, he was in the bullpen last year, but they knew they were converting him to a starter this season. And like, he started before. He's a guy that has thrown many complete games. He's efficient. He gets a lot of ground balls. And I just think he's veteran enough to get you enough innings and enough strikeouts with Minnesota's aggression. Obviously, it's risky picking on Minnesota, but of the spend ups, he's probably my favorite, followed by Merrill Kelly, which I don't feel great about, but I do think that the Texas ballpark has become significantly less hitter friendly, and there are strikeouts in that lineup. And although this guy's peripheral screamed he was going to blow up last year, he really never did. And we know Texas can strike out with the best of them when they're cold, and they really haven't shown us much offensively yet this year. That's really it on the expensive side. I think, taking a shot on Eustace Sheffield at 8.2 has merit. I know you like him. I'll let you talk about that. But this guy was one of the top pitching prospects for the Yankees. We traded him for James Paxton. And, I know the Yankees didn't want to let him go. He's a left-hander with good stuff and has supposedly looked awesome so far this year. So, the Angels outside of Mike Trout, there's not much that scares you in that lineup. I think he's viable as well up top. You're muted.
Son of a bitch. I'm not that I'm with you. I'm not that interested on in too many guys up top. Walker Buehler in cash games, I would go Walker Buehler because I think the masses will do that. They'll take Buehler and, like you said, one of either Lindholm or the other guy. I agree with you. I just don't see people using both of them together in cash. So I'm okay with him in a cash game setting. In tournaments, though, due to the fact that it's not just the limitation, it's also the fact that he is playing the Astros now. We'll see if the Astros strikeouts go up at all without the cheating, assuming they're not cheating. But either way, I just think we can get a similar score to what I expect Buehler to give us elsewhere for cheaper, and just load up on the bats. So I'm with you on that. I actually think that Gibson is probably one of the more expensive guys I'm looking at on DraftKings. On FanDuel, him and Samardzija are roughly the same price, and we'll talk about Samardzija in the value tier. But in the high price guys, I think Gibson is one of the ones that I feel more comfortable. I'm not going to say comfortable. That's not the right word. Is one of the guys I'm willing to bite the bullet for. I read that I don't see anything saying that he's on any kind of limitation, although a lot of teams haven't necessarily said. Looking at his numbers last year, he had a 13% swinging strike rate. He had a 3.8 FIP. And the same thing you talked about Merrill Kelly, it's the same exact situation. This Texas ballpark has been playing a little bit more pitcher-friendly so far, and that's what we expected. They have a roof. They're closing the roof. Maybe when they open the roof, things change. But right now, with the roof closed, I think that's kind of where we're at. You mentioned Justice Sheffield. I'm with you on that, man. Like, I'd kind of drifted away, but I'm kind of drifting back. He's looked really good in camp. The Angels are a team we don't typically like to target guys against, but he did go 4 innings in camp. That makes me believe that he could, especially if he's efficient, go 5 or 6 innings. And sometimes when you play teams that don't strike guys out a lot, they allow you to get through innings quicker. So he could get to 6 innings on a 75 pitch count situation. So I am kind of interested in him as well. And then as far as the guys above, that's basically it. Did you talk about the value guys? I was looking something up at the end. It's like, no, right?
No, off at
So
Sheffield.
I'll stop at Sheffield as well. Those are really the main 2 guys that I'm looking at here for tournaments. Let's get into some of these cheaper options, with probably more to talk about in this range. What do you got?
Yep. So the guys that I'm most interested down here are going to be Jeff Samardzija at 6.5K against San Diego. San Diego's been really impressive offensively, but Samardzija, especially usually early on, he does kind of tend to wear as the season goes on. But I think the strikeouts can be there. The price tag is nice. We're in a pitcher-friendly ballpark. Enough pluses at 6.5K. A guy who's significantly more on FanDuel. Who else? Josh Lindblom, KBO All-Star, stretched out, taking on Pittsburgh, who just does not have a very good lineup. Another pitching-friendly park. We are looking at a 10-run total there, so, not my favorite idea, but again, just super cheap. Pittsburgh didn't strike out a ton last year, but at that price, anything above a 10 is kind of gravy. And then lastly down here, I got some interest. Well, Patrick Sandoval I'm fine with. I do think there's merit to some Seattle leverage stacks. Just as yesterday I talked about maybe attacking some of the stars. Attacking Houston's pitcher would have worked. Attacking Tampa Bay's would not. But the Braves did come back and score like 6 runs once he left the game. So even a Brave stack really wouldn't have killed you yesterday. So I'm cool with Patrick Sandoval. I remember him from last year doing pretty well. The Seattle team is kind of scrappy though. So if you made me choose, I would say leverage, but I'll have Sandoval on at least one of my 3 teams today. But Daniel Mengden, another guy that's never going to blow the doors off of a score. He just doesn't have a ton of strikeout upside. But he had a ton of games last year where he only give up like 1 or 2 earned, strike out like 3 or 4. And, taking on the Rockies, who strike out, amongst the best so far. And last year, I think, in Oakland, pitching-friendly park, one of the lower totals out there. He's a guy I'm willing to take a shot on just due to lack of, other decent options. And 7.4 is not that bad. So Samardzija, Mengden, and Lindblom, and I'm all right with Sandoval, but he's my least favorite of the group.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm not really into Sandoval either, which could come back to bite us in the ass. But I don't know. Even on a slate like this with shitty people, I'd rather go with other shitty people. You mentioned Samardzija, man, on FanDuel. He's like 8.2, and I feel like a lot of people will. Maybe he's a little bit more popular than this because the pricing over there is weird. Like you're gonna leave salary on the table on FanDuel. Like unless you're pitching Buehler in every team, you're gonna leave some salary there. So he's got a great park, like you said. San Diego is the matchup. They're a little bit better, a little bit more intimidating their lineup, but they're still San Diego. And again, we have a great park. Lindblom was the KBO like MVP or whatever last year. He was just awesome. And those of you who played KBO with us, you probably heard us reference him a few different times. But I'm okay with it. 5-1 on DraftKings on FanDuel. It seems like kind of strange that you're passing over a lot of other guys, but the problem with Lindholm is he's never had success in the majors. Even the minors wasn't great. It was just the KBO, and really just that 1 or 2 seasons. Before that, he was in the KBO. That was the second trip to the KBO, and the first one didn't go as smooth. So maybe he's just improved. It's a possibility. I'll be rolling some teams with him on DraftKings is where I find him to be more valuable, where he's like 5-1 as an SP2. So I'll probably have some exposure to him. But the last guy I'll mention here that we haven't covered is this Rony Garcia guy. Again, just a DraftKings only. He's 4K. That's really all it is. He's a Rule 5 pick kind of player. I don't think there's anything too special, but Kansas City erupted yesterday. And they're still not like a great team. We have a decent hitting environment, and you could certainly make an argument to attack him, which I think Paulie will get into when we get to the stacks. But if you are looking for a punt for whatever reason, just to be contrarian or whatever the case may be, they has said that he looked really good in camp. They said his fastball looks really live. We've heard that shit before several times, and it doesn't always come to fruition. But on a slate, if you're really not happy with the pitching and you're like, you know what, I don't even want to spend this much money on pitching, he's an option on DraftKings. Again, on FanDuel, I don't think I'd do it, but on DraftKings at 4K, a minimum price, just to try it in a good matchup against Kansas City. But yeah, pitching is ugly. My pool for pitchers is pretty small, pretty tight. With that said, Paulie, let's move it over to the bats.
One small thing, the guy Kyle Zimmer for Kansas City, like he's a tad more expensive. I think it's 6'1". He does throw like 97, and you know Detroit does not hit speed very well. Like their lineup profiling against 96 mile per hour fastballs, they have one guy over a 100 ISO. And you really want close to 200 ISO to be very good. And like 080, 060, 050, 020, 050, 090, 172, Heimer Candelario. Like, you know, that might be a decent play, especially paired with the Royals if you're using the Royals bats. I like kind of like getting that correlation with your pitcher in the stack. When the stack goes off, usually the pitcher, goes a little longer. And, if the team's down a bunch of runs, the other offense kind of gives up, yada, yada. So if you're punting like that, I personally prefer the Royals bat. So I think you could even take a look at this Zimmer guy if you got, the extra 2K to spend.
Holla for $1. Let's talk about some bats.
Bats. So my favorite offenses right now are Arizona and Oakland. Oakland is going up against Senzatella, who has traditionally been reverse splits to splits neutral. Oakland's got a ton of righties in that lineup. He basically throws 60% fastballs. Oakland tees off on that shit. Oakland's just got a lineup full of right-handed bats. Semien, Laureano, Chapman, Canna, Chris Davis, Piscotty, Pinder. And obviously you're always putting Matt Olson into an Oakland stack against this weak pitcher and then even weaker bullpen behind. So, I can get behind Oakland. And then Arizona, just an offense that I respect, does not strike out much. Kyle Gibson, when he does get hit, he usually gets lit up. And I feel like Arizona has not done much offensively, similar to like how the Mets were yesterday and are due for one of their eruptions. And they're an offense that can just they're loaded top to bottom, this lineup. They added Starling Marte. Christian Walker was murdering the ball last year. He's another year of experience and one of the bigger power hitters in the league. You got Peralta, Kettle, Marte. You got Cole Calhoun batting second for this team. A lot of left-handed bats to take on Kyle Gibson. That's where he struggles. And a lot of these guys are switch hitters, so if the lefty comes out of the pen, they're not going to get pinch hit for. Team did not strike out much last year. They were one of the better offenses. They have a 210 ISO as a team against right-handed bats, 343 WOBA as a team. This particular lineup. So they're an offense that I do have my eye on. Love the Mets again. I think they're going to be one of the better offenses in baseball this year, especially if Yo-Yo Cespeñero gets it going and taking on a left-handed pitcher. Just gravy for Yo-Yo and Pete Alonso and whatnot. And then I got a little bit of interest in Milwaukee, Seattle, and Kansas City as kind of contrarian or cheaper teams. Milwaukee mainly as a leverage, and anytime you can get Christian Yelich on a team, you're never going to argue against that. Derek Holland, one of the more homer prone pitchers out there, or at least on the slate. You got Ryan Braun, Keston Hiura, who is a beast. They got Avisel Garcia and Justin Smoke on this team now, both that can hit the ball out of the park. Probably going to be very low owned. KC, very cheap, taking on Detroit. A guy who's got no experience and then a terrible bullpen behind that's somewhat taxed. And, Sal Perez seems to be picking up right where he left off. Whit Merrifield hit one out. Soler hit 40 bombs last year. Adalberto, just like this lineup a lot. Even Mike Franco hit 2 bombs yesterday. I wouldn't go back to that and count on that happening again. But like the Royals for a cheap contrarian stack, and that's really where I stand. Those 5 teams: Oakland, Arizona, the Mets, Kansas City, Milwaukee. And like I said, with Sandoval looking to be like 40%, and Seattle's been hitting the ball so far this year, I don't mind like a 3-man Seattle for leverage against the chalk today as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the Brewers, and I actually agree. Despite the bad park, Derek Holland has got troll potential. He's made a career like surviving in these pitcher-friendly parks. But if you look at the Brewers lineup, I mean, I'd like to ask our boy Cam what he thinks of this Brewers team. But if you look at the Brewers lineup, one thing that they have is a bunch of lefty masters, man. Like guys who's made a career off of hitting left-handed pitching. Ryan Braun, Jed Kyorko for the longest time only hit against lefties. Avisel Garcia, another one that's just lefty master. It's the only thing he's really ever hit is lefties. And you take it to the top. Keston Hiura, who's a young guy. We haven't seen too much of him, but we know he's pretty good, and we assume as a righty he's going to mash some lefties. So I'm with you on that, man. I do like the Brewers, and they have a 5.8 implied run total. And I think because of the park and because of some of these names, people just aren't going to go there. I have some concern that if Holland leaves the game, that some of these guys may get pinch hit for the platoon, guys like Kyorko or whatever. However, if that's the case, if he comes out, right, if he comes out that early, then you would assume it's because the Brewers just dirtied him up, and you may have already gotten your points. So I do like the Brewers. Just wanted to mention it because you mentioned it, and I didn't know if anyone else was going to kind of looking at that. But another team you mentioned is Oakland. That one I honestly wasn't even really considering, but you make a lot of good points about Senzatella. We know he throws a lot of fastballs. He's a ground ball pitcher. However, the A's have made a career out of the A's, like Davis, guys like this, have made a career out of hitting fly balls. And that's one of the things we know the sabermetrics that the A's have been onto is finding fly ball hitters. So I do like those two as like low-owned stacks. As far as a little bit more popular, or I don't even know if I would assume popular, but the New York Mets would be my favorite stack. So they have the highest implied run total at 6. We have more of the same good hitting weather. They're going up against a pitcher, Matt Hall, who was a terrible piece of the Detroit bullpen last year. He was a terrible piece of the Detroit bullpen last year. And the Red Sox, they've been using him in camp to go like 3-4 innings. So we may actually see him quite a bit. So I do like Cespedes a lot, who was off yesterday in a small park. I like Pete Alonso once again. I think this time we can kind of switch it up. I expect McNeil to have a better day. That's lefty on lefty. I think he'll be lower owned. And again, depending on where you want to go, like if people want to spend money, the Mets are really the only team on DraftKings that are actually expensive and in a good spot. The other guys that are expensive, you got like fucking Dodgers, right? Who it's not a bad spot, but they are playing a very heavy ground ball pitcher. And you got like Houston, who's playing Walker Buehler. So it's like, it's kind of weird. It almost pushes you to the Mets, and that makes me think maybe the ownership will be a little higher for the people that don't spend up on pitching. But I do like the Mets. They'll probably the stack I'll have the most of. As far as like a cheap kind of stack, the value stack, yesterday the value stack in the article was the Royals. Today I kind of lean towards Detroit. I'm on a little bit of the opposite side. I think Kyle Zimmer's a little bit worse from what we've seen. Now, that's tough to say because we have actually seen Kyle Zimmer pitch. We really haven't seen Roney pitch in the major leagues. So I actually like the Tigers a little bit. Again, not a ton, not going to go crazy, but as far as like working in a cheap stack, I do like them. I think the Royals bullpen is just as bad as the Tigers, if not worse. You can really go either way in this one. I mean, we got two pitchers. One's unproven. We don't know anything about him. The other one's been terrible since he's been in the majors. And you've got like two offenses that are not good, but have home run hitters. So it's what's going to win out. Like who's worse, the pitchers or the lineups? And I do think as far as value stacks go, if there is a value stack that makes it work because for some reason paying up for pitcher was the way to go, I think it's going to be one of these teams between the Royals and Detroit once again. And that's not a hot take. It happened yesterday, so it's not that crazy to think that's the case. But even though the Royals went nuts yesterday, I'd be surprised if they were popular today because these two teams are really never popular, especially not on a big-ass slate like this. Another team that kind of grew on me a little bit, or a game, I should say, is this Twins game. We know the Twins hit a ton of homers. I'm a little reluctant to completely stack against a guy like Carlos Martinez, but the Twins hit more home runs than anybody last year, so they're always, anytime they're going to be low owned, you always want to have them on your radar. You always want to at least be thinking about them. Eddie Rosario kind of stands out to me a little bit. I think he profiled all right, and he's got a little bit of decent history against him. Not that that means shit these days. But on the Cardinals side, they're familiar with Bailey. I think we've seen Bailey shut them down at certain points. We've also seen them blow him up. And if you do like the BVIP, if you're a fan of the BVIP, aka BVP, aka batter versus pitcher, then you might like what you see from the Cardinals, man. Matt Carpenter, Yadier Molina. Like I said, a lot of these guys have seen him, and they're familiar with his stuff. And if you're not a believer in Homer Bailey, then the Cardinals could be a little bit of a sneaky stack as well. But man, aside from those teams as like the main pillars, I thought, like I said, like the A's were the ones. Like the Brewers, I was kind of thinking about them also. The A's were the ones that I really wasn't considering. And I'm starting to think that maybe that was a little bit of a mistake, especially looking at the pricing, man. Chris Davis is cheap on both sites. That's a double dong waiting to happen at some point. Like you said, man, Matty Olson, they hit fastballs. That's what this guy throws. This guy throws a lot of ground balls. They hit a lot of fly balls. It's kind of fits. So I'm with that, bro. I'm with that. We'll do some dong watch, and then we'll get into some questions, because I actually do see some questions here. We got about 8 minutes till FanDuel lock. So, as a matter of fact, because we were so close to FanDuel lock, I see a FanDuel question that we're going to answer now. Then we'll do the dong watch. But Frank Corona. Oh, I'm sorry. There was a couple of these. I think somebody had asked top 3 pitchers on FanDuel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Merrill Kelly, Yanni Chirinos, and Eustace Sheffield.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go Samardzija, Gibson, and then I guess Sheffield on that one. FanDuel, again, it's kind of more difficult because the pricing doesn't help you at all, because you're gonna have money on the table regardless of what you do, unless you're playing Buehler. Frank Corona has a question. He's a longtime Wise Take Nation member. What about Davies on FanDuel at 5,800?
I can accept it on FanDuel, because like what Davies does usually do is eat innings. He's just very, very low strikeouts, and really hard for me to target a guy that, like, I think like 3 is his ceiling for strikeouts. But if he does do well and gets the win, like you could eat enough innings and be decent. But he's only like an SP2 kind of guy for me. I don't think I would ever use him on FanDuel unless it was like a 2-game slate or something.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that, though. I think that was it for the FanDuel questions, or at least FanDuel specific. So we'll get into some dong watch, and then we'll hit up the rest. I see some DraftKings ones in there as well. So who's going yard tonight, Paulie?
Who is going yard? I'm gonna go with Kettle Marte.
There you go. I like that one. I'm gonna take one that I think is an easy one, just based off pricing on both sides. Yo-Yo Cespedes. Going Yo-Yo Cespedes after a day off. Yo-Yo Cespedes for those for the layman's out there who may not know, who's not hip on the lingo we use around here.
Next I will roll with Jorge Soler.
Soler, Big City of Dreams. I like that one. I'll go Ryan Braun.
Alright, and I'll go with such a cop out. Pete Alonso.
It's all good, bro. You chose 2 pretty contrarian plays. You're entitled to have one.
I know yesterday I had Alonso and he went yard, and I forget which Royal I picked, but I know that he hit a home run. I was like, oh, dong watch when it happened. I forget who my third one was, but there's a good chance I went 3 for 3 yesterday.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, I know for the Mets, we both picked one Met, and they both dinged. I think I had Conforto lefty on lefty. You had Alonso. bang, bang. They were the first 2 homers too. First 2 homers. I think Dom Smith hit the next one, but that was on. I'm gonna give us the pat on the back right there. Shout out to Patio Joe. Yo, Joe sent me the text thread too of him of talking about the Rays to you. He sent it to me.
Look up top. I said Tampa.
Joey Joe getting them.
Where's your Joey? That's all that matters.
I've picked 2 a little more like Cespedes is kind of, you can argue, as a cop out, right? He's a home run hitter against a lefty in a small park. Brian Braun, a lefty, bad lefty. He's a lefty matcher. So I'm gonna go with a good hitter, I think, but maybe the matchup people would argue is like maybe not so easy. I'm gonna go to Eddie Rosario. Boom. Little sprinkle action. Little sprinkle dinkles. All right, let's pop up in here and look at some of the questions. Patio Joe. One of us called him Eustace Sheffield. Was that you?
Yeah.
So
that's what I think.
Is it? Okay, because Joey's like, isn't it Justice? I don't know. Just us.
I think it's Eustace.
Just us. And I'm seeing the correction that you gave me as well from our boy Pinstripe Pimp, who says it's pronounced Yorko. So my bad. My apologies on that, Paulie. Shout out to you. Let's see. Pinstripe Pimp says, what's up with the Mills guy? Sorry if it was covered. Mills is what, the Red Sox pitcher, right?
No, I think that's Alec Mills on the card.
Oh, shit. Yeah, he's on the FanDuel slate. Yeah. Alec, you know what? I'm glad he brought that. The circumstances, I don't love, right? We got really hot temperatures, winds blowing out in a small park with 50% humidity against the Reds, who I do think are an improved offense this year. So the matchup I'm not crazy about, but I think Alec Mills himself, if he was on DraftKings on this slate, I would have at least given him a harder look. It was really the matchup and the park and all that kind of turned me off. But just on a projection standpoint, going by averages, not necessarily his advanced metrics, but by averages, he didn't grade out terribly. But I do think we have a lot of good arms, and I don't know. I just felt a little iffy on that. But he's 6'3" on FanDuel, Paulie.
Yep. No, and he did well preseason wise, and he's a guy Cubs fans are pretty high on, but not today, not in this slate. Just safer options. Cincinnati bats, I really respect.
Not for you. Let's see. Here we go. Our boy Steve has a question. What about Rosario or Mondesi on FanDuel?
Mondesi.
I'll go Rosario, but it's neck and neck for me, man. Like, Mondesi let me down yesterday, but I still think he's crazy underpriced. Like, he's just not that cheap of a. He's probably one of, if not the best player on that team. But I'll go Rosario just because I am stacking a lot of Mets. So holla at your boy all day. Ether has something that I think you would agree on. He says Matt Olson. Oh, okay, he has JD also. But the Matt Olson part I know you would agree on. He says Matt Olson and JD for homers tonight. Ether, good luck, brother.
Yes.
I got
to choose. I'll take, JD Martinez? Yeah. Not JD Davis of the Mets because he may homer. But I'll take Olson.
Yeah, I like Olson. I think both JD's homer, though. I think both JD's. JD Davis and JD Martinez. Let's see. Mookie says, Moochie or Mookie? Moochie mob ties. How about Hosmer to hit a home run? Anybody like Hosmer from the Padritos?
Yeah, man, he's been hot. Can't argue against that. It probably got the most RBIs in the season so far. But no, yeah, he's swinging a hot bat. You got to jump on Hosmer when he's hot. Can't argue that. But worst park in baseball for lefties. Yeah,
that's definitely the downside, if you will. Let me see if I got anything else here. No other questions, man. I guess I think we still got a little bit of time before the DraftKings lock, so we got some time to do dirties here. Any other bits, strategy pieces, any standout value plays, anything at all that you wanted to point out?
Well, I am scrolling down here in the cheap seats. Like Michael Brantley of Houston is 2,800 on DraftKings, and Bueller's only going to pitch 5 innings. That seems like a really nice.
Yeah, I thought that was crazy. That was weird, wasn't it? I saw that too. I was just like, what the fuck?
CK Hernandez, second base eligible, 3K against a lefty who he mashes his whole career. AJ Pollock is cheap as well against a lefty whom he's mashed most of his career, as is Chris Taylor. So all the Dodgers are very cheap. That's kind of interesting. or not all, but a lot of the Dodgers. I'm sure, Betts and company are still expensive. Betts is 47, which is as cheap as you're going to get for Betts, and I can't seem to find Bellinger 49. But, Dodgers cheap, Astros cheap, and, you're going to see a bunch of bullpen, but, I'm into the offenses we talked about. I would say of the ones I spoke, Oakland, Arizona, KC, Mets, Milwaukee, and I do kind of like St. Louis, but I'm only making 3 teams, so I'm gonna have to narrow this shit down. And I think you can kind of play wherever you want on DraftKings as long as you're avoiding Walker Buehler, who I plan to completely avoid. I have no interest at all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. Like I said, if I was playing cash today, which I'm not, then I would use Buehler there kind of as a block. But and also because you want to use the best players possible in cash, and he is the best pitcher on the slate, hands down. It's not even close. But for tournaments, we have a couple guys that don't seem to be as limited. And we have guys that are in softer matchups. And so I'm with you. I don't plan on using Buehler at all today myself. And if he does really well, we'll be crying about it later. But you just know, like Glasnow did the dirty yesterday as chalk. You just kind of get that feeling that people are going to be like, oh yeah, well, Glasnow did it yesterday. It was fine. And kind of go back and I don't know. I just don't feel great about it. I'm with you on that. We got a question from Yehuda Blonder. It says cards with a question mark. I'm assuming he's asking about the Cardinals.
Yes. We talked about the Cardinals. We like them. Yes.
I'm with you on that. I do like the Cards. But yeah, the Michael Brantley thing, that was kind of crazy. Again, the pricing is just so strange. Like not just cheap guys like Brantley being 2,800, even though Buehler's only going to pitching no more than 5 innings. But then you got like Homer Bailey's at 9K, and you got like Kyle Gibson at 9.7. And listen, I'm playing some Gibson, but that's really because I just feel like he's not going to get played because he's so expensive. I don't like the price whatsoever. Just strange. Just like the pricing is it's just strange all around. Very weird. Very, very weird. With that said, I think that's going to do it for us. We got about, 15 minutes or so, probably really about 20 minutes before DraftKings locks up. But I think we pretty much covered the bases. No point in talking about things that we're not really going to play. We just kind of talk about what we're narrowing down the field. I do see one other question. Any interest in a Padres stack?
Not really. I actually have more interest in using Samardzija.
Yeah.
And they've been impressive. They've been one of the better offenses. It's only 3 games deep, and I do have respect for Samardzija and certainly that part.
I'll at your boy. That's going to do it, Nation. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We will be back at this tomorrow for another MLB stream. And then, of course, I think tomorrow night we'll probably do the first NBA stream because Thursday I will be busy. But we may have to do the baseball one tomorrow night too, actually. So we may have double stream action tomorrow night after Wednesday's stream. So it could be a very busy Wednesday night. And then, of course, we'll be back at it Friday. We'll have some NBA action. We'll have the MLB action Monday through Friday. This is where you need to be. So make sure you hit the like button. If you don't hit the like button, you don't subscribe, then how are you going to do dirties? I just don't see how it's going to happen. So if you like dirties, you know what to do. For Paulie D, for myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, as always, good luck.
Yeah.